You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by footballstadiumprince.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped!
Yes!
And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot is goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot.
Goal!
And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis
yes!
City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
What is up, friends of the feather? This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. I'm your host, John, and with me, as always, is the voice of Minneapolis City Game Day, the Nate Morales. Nate, the soccer bug has thawed, and I am covered in bites, man. We got my kids starting soccer. We got City starting. I'm able to go to Tulsa to watch the Athletic take on Sporting Kansas City tomorrow. All the things, Nate. Are you as amped as I am to move into almost full season mode?
I am. I'm almost scared, John. We're gonna be so busy. It's gonna be so nuts. I'm really excited.
To cover.
That's
so
true. That's true. Yeah, man. I'm fired up.
Lots of newness. But
so much.
With two topics on the docket for this week's episode, one being current, one being continuing the newness. First off, we're going to stop off and talk about our second cousins across the river. And by that, I mean Minnesota United FC 2. We kind of seeded the conversation last week, and then we decided purposeful pause for the ease of listening to this show because we didn't want to pack in so much. I know, Nate, you have some thoughts on them, as do I. With two former Crows on the squad and a litany of local players. And they have a different identity to the parent club, and we're kind of okay with these guys. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then the newness comes. Finally, it's 1 week out from the Minnesota Super Cup match between Minneapolis City and Minnesota United FC U19s. So we continue our player announcement mode, and we've got a whole slew of brand new players to the club that we're going to highlight tonight.
That's for sure, John. But before we get started, we've got a little bit of housekeeping to cover. Some fare thee wells to say. If you've been keeping your ear to the social wind the last week, City announced the full retirement of two players that have deep roots with the club. Of course, I'm talking about both Charlie Adams and Abdallah Ba. Let's start by talking about Abdallah Ba, John. He was a guest of ours on the 200th podcast, 200th episode of this podcast that we recorded live. And I think that was like the first time, maybe since season 1 back in 2016, that we really talked to him in any sort of interview capacity. And it was just eye-opening about how just through junior college and finally finding his spot on a full college team, and then coming to Minneapolis City, this guy has been, fighting the good fight, trying to stay playing at the highest level possible for a really long time. And, both of them were fan favorites for Minneapolis City, but I think Abdallah Ba has probably the more fan favorite goal of the two of them.
Absolutely. And that just nail in the coffin against Duluth to win a title.
Yep.
You gotta love anything that encompasses all of what I just said. But I think the one thing that most fans don't get a piece of, unless you're the diehard that kind of is on the fringes of being where the team's at, is just the character and the person that Abdallah is. Like he's super quiet, but when you get a chance to sit down and talk to him, have a beer, have a conversation with him. Just such a down-to-earth person, and that's kind of how his playing style was. Like super down-to-earth, just did his job, and then every now and then would pop up and surprise you with a set goal against Duluth, or any number of kind of I'll call them shoots and ladders type runs from outside defense. But
Yeah.
I think that the both of these players kind of came to Minneapolis City, and they weren't really defenders. They both played centrally, and we found that they were the bookends of probably the most stout defense we've ever had in the club's history,
Yeah.
and how locked down they were. And I think that it just showed that the versatility of both guys, and Abdallah in particular, that I know he didn't like playing left back, but man, was he damn good at it. And I think over time, he just started to understand that like he can play in that spot. It gets him on the field, and he's very good at it. He was voted in the best 11 in our inaugural season in the PLA as a left back. And I know many of foes that we played have always said, we had to switch wingers because we knew that we weren't going through that side.
Yep.
And no offense to Charlie, but Abdallah was locked down. In his prime, it was very rare that he ever got beaten, but he also got up into the attack as well. So yeah, definitely a guy that's going to be missed on the field, but Abdallah, he's clubbed through and through, so he's definitely going to be out at matches, and you'll see his face popping up in the stands.
Yeah, for sure. The second guy that we alluded to, Charlie Adams, made his final appearance last season. He is retiring as well. You said it, Charlie came to us as a midfielder, but really he found his spot on the team at that right back position. But I feel like Charlie could always be counted on to slot in at that defensive midfield role and do really well. And you knew it was kind of, there was always, whenever he was there, you knew you were in for kind of a tactical switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a reason, there was something that the coach had seen in the opposing team to put Charlie at that midfield role. And man, every time he was there, Charlie was ready for it.
Yeah, and it was really unfortunate that his last game with the Crows was probably, I think, one of his best games that I've seen him play, and he was playing at the deep sitting 6 central midfield role, and seeing, I mean, he was all over the place. It was almost like he knew that might be his last match, and then of course the lightning struck him, and he pulled up with a hamstring injury, which I know he kind of was carrying throughout the latter part of his years with City. But I mean, the Chazzle Dazzle's no longer, so we're gonna have to kind of teach somebody to do that, because you're the double step over that
you just don't expect it from Charlie.
Yeah, you don't expect the quick footwork from Charlie, but every time he set it up, and you could see it coming if you knew about it, and if you didn't, you were left three steps in the dust, and he was off into the attacking third. And I'll never forget when I was coaching the first Open Cup team, and we really didn't have a right back, and I just asked him, like, can you play right back? And he just looked at me with that, like, that Charlie Adams, baby face smile, and was like, I can, but do you really want me to? And I was like, I really do. I think you're the guy for the job. And he's like, all right, let's give it a go. And then from that moment on, he was mostly a right back. So not saying I'm a managerial genius by any means, but he's just one of those guys that when you watch them read a game, is he the most athletically gifted person? No, but he's so smart on a soccer field that you can put him anywhere and he would probably succeed.
Yeah. So going to miss both those guys. Definitely going to miss seeing them on the field, but I'm sure we're going to see them up in the stands.
Yep, absolutely. Well, as we mentioned in the lead up, tonight's show, there's some soccer buzz coming from across the river from city headquarters, and that buzz is about Minnesota United FC 2, the reserve team. They call themselves the Twosies, which I think is the worst thing ever. Like, from a marketing perspective, we know that Minnesota United has a lot of misses. I think this is one, because the last time I heard the word Twosie was when my kids were potty training. So, like, I don't know. If I'm them, I'm trying to figure out another name for ourselves. But I've seen 3 of their matches recently,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever I was able to get a link for it, all their games are not televised, and I'm really starting to kind of get behind this team, Nate. And I never thought I'd say that from Minnesota United organizational perspective, but why don't you kick things off with what you know and what you think about these guys before I jump in?
Yeah, for sure. To me, John, Minnesota United 2 is exciting for a few reasons. Of course, the first one has to be that they've got the Minneapolis City and just in general a local soccer connection. Rory O'Driscoll is starting almost every game in that midfield role. You got Loic Masanvi, who's splitting time at the forward position. Of course, Emmanuel Iwe and I think Carlos is his name, Carlos Leatherman.
Yeah, Carlos.
Yep, both Joy the People prospects. You got Devin Paddleford out of Woodbury High School. You've got Patrick Weah, Tim Emmings. Like, these guys are all local and they're all like fun. You have to root for them. They're kids that you saw play in high school. You saw them play for Minneapolis City. You saw them come
Play
up.
against.
Yeah, you played against them, or your kids played against them. Like, it's more fun to watch because you want Minnesota soccer prospects to succeed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that the other thing that you alluded to is that all these games, this team, it's very different. It's free from like the personality and the culture issues that you and I talk about all the time that I think to make Minnesota United itself so hateable. Like, how many times are we just like, man, that player is a fucking dick, or this coach has these guys playing like jerks, and he talks like a jerk, and he shits on his players like a jerk, and like nobody wants to, like, that just makes you feel, I don't know, nobody wants to watch that, nobody wants to hear that, right? But these young guys are trying to make an impression, they're trying to they're trying to make a splash, and it's way more fun to watch. It's like it's refreshing.
Well, I think that it's also free from the fandom that a lot of folks kind of turn a nose to. Like, there's no, like, the fan culture is not there, and the folks that actually do get behind the team they're getting behind it for the reason of following the local players and following the team versus just being a fan of an MLS club. If that makes sense at all. I don't know if it did.
No, exactly. Like, I think it's why you and I, it's one of the things that maybe is so far unspoken, but like, you watch Minnesota United 2 for the same reason you watch Minneapolis City, or for the same reason you watch, I guess, St. Croix, if you're a St. Croix fan, or whatever. It's just that. It's because these are local guys that you want to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings me to the next point. Like, we keep coming back to the criticism that Minnesota United passes over local players for whoever knows why. And this team avoids all that. It's like, they're all here, man. Isn't that sweet? And doesn't it look good? And isn't it fun to watch? Like,
it's almost like there's no one else who's focusing on local talent that's fun to watch.
Yeah. But all I'm saying is, like, we said it from the beginning, like, how easy would it have been for United to draft Jackson Ewell and get people on board with cheering for a local kid? Mm-hmm. Year after year after year, they passed on 3-4 local guys, right, this year.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, man, it's a little bit refreshing. And ultimately, watching Minnesota United 2 is enjoyable for some of the same reasons as I've said. Like, watching lower league soccer is enjoyable. It's fun to watch the local talent, and I'll just close with this, right? Fun to watch the local talent show off their skills and develop at a high level. It feels really good when you watch it. And sometimes, I leave a United game feeling kind of gross. So it's nice to, like, leave a United game or watch a United game and turn it off and be like, man, that was fucking fun. Those kids are great.
Yeah. And I think even for me, it's seeing like someone like Emmanuel Iwe feature in the first team.
Yeah.
Or Patrick Weah. I think those are the only two that have featured with the first team. And I wasn't as high on their debut performance as most people were. I thought there were some bright spots, but clearly, like, not ready yet kind of feeling. But it was still exciting to be, like I remember watching the game when Emmanuel got in for the first time, and talking to someone next to me who's watching it, and just telling them, like, and mentioning, like, hey, like, he came up in the league that Minneapolis City's in. It's awesome to see, a local player, coming up and getting the opportunity, and people get behind that. And, whether it's watching their whole career or just hearing, from word of mouth while you're at the game or watching it, that's a local kid.
Yep.
It's nice. I think the big thing for me, actually, I'll go into my second point first. The team culture, I think, comes through on the field.
Mm-hmm.
They look like they enjoy each other. They work hard for the cause. And that's something that's really hard to see with the first team, where guys look like they don't really want to play with others. And I've seen a number of occasions where players will, like, look off a wide open pass, and there's got to be some personal shit going on there. Like, why would you not play that pass? And then it happens again between the same two players. And then if you're paying attention, and at the next stoppage, there's always a little bit of a bickering or a conversation being had between the two of them. So you can tell there's, like, some tension there. And
Darwin and Mason Toy were notorious for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Darwin didn't pass to anybody.
He was just not passing to Mason Toy.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I see players look off on Maria. I see him look off Fragapane. And I don't know why, but I have a pretty good idea for each of them why they get looked off. But you got to have that brotherhood, Nate, right? Like, we've seen it before. It works. And the only way it works without having the brotherhood is if you're winning, because winning is contagious and it cures everything. But as soon as you hit the rough patches, then it all the true colors kind of start to come out. But I think a lot of that is because I'm actually a really big fan of the coach. Cameron Knowles is a guy who comes from the league. He featured over 100 times in the MLS, and the Aussies spent most of that time in the Portland Timbers organization. And then after his playing days were over, he started coaching in that organization with the Timbers. And that organization, if you think about it, consistently hits on its players in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also well known for fostering its youth talent through to the first team. So if you're trying to find a guy who can bring that to the table from a reserve squad, he's kind of your guy. I think that his decision making in game has been pretty sharp, tactically, from a tactical perspective. The players seem to fit the system that he plays, which is mostly a 4-3-3. I mean, he's a former Akron Zip, so Caleb Porter only played a 4-3-3, and that's what he knows best, maybe, and that's what he has his players playing. We don't see the first team playing a 4-3-3 ever, because you have a very British coach who likes to play more direct instead of trying to work the ball. And so you see the difference. Like the differences are all there, and also I think that his substitutions rarely ever miss. Outside of not giving Luik as much time as I think he deserves. But that's fine. That's fine. He's only 19, so there's plenty of time for him to get more playing time. But I mean, his subs hit unless he's clearing the bench for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They're up a couple goals and he wants to get some guys some playing time, or he's forced by injury. Those are the only instances where I've seen his thought process rushed when injuries happen mid game. And I don't know. I think it comes from top down, to be honest with you, Nate.
Yeah, that's cool. One of those things where you're a little bit more familiar with that coaching side of the game. And I agree, though, like, it all comes together and shows up on the field. And that's why it's fun to watch. They're having fun. That they are, taking this as a growing opportunity, and it's great to see them get those opportunities at the next level.
Yeah, for sure.
So we talked
about those guys.
We talked a little bit about Rory O'Driscoll. Now let's get into a section where we're going to talk about his another O'Driscoll that plays for Minneapolis City, and that is Captain Aiden O'Driscoll. We are going to talk about our player signings, John. And last week we kind of skipped over any major or any announcements of players that are returning, and we're going to do that again. Except I want to touch on Aiden, because his return is very, very cool. He's been with the club since 2017. He was a 4-year starter at Luther, where he graduated from in 2019. He had a pretty successful season at Luther, American Rivers Conference Offensive Player of the Year, first captain. He was our first captain of the USL2 team, and he's returning again. And John, I'll tell you, like, Aiden, I think if I remember right, is your prime example of a player who was basically consistently told from early on in the Minneapolis City system that, like, you're just not quite good enough yet. You're not quite good enough yet. Keep
or not
working,
quite big
keep
enough,
working.
not quite strong enough. Just
Yep.
keep at it and come back.
And he did, and he became our first captain of the USL2 team. And Johnny scored one of the most spectacular goals in Minneapolis City history in that 2021 NPSL regional semifinal against the Carpathians. He had this like individual effort, basically box to box, dribbling the whole team until he was able to roof it from like 5 yards away. It was phenomenal. And it's going to be great to have him back.
I think the one thing that is kind of a couple layers inside the onion with the return of Aiden that I think is probably the most important is the team is relatively new. You have a new coaching staff. You have a lot of new players. I mean, we said we haven't gone through a lot of the returners yet, but there's not a ton of them. And we talked about like the turning over of a new leaf from a player perspective, where we have some. We talked about 2 players that are leaving by their own accord, and in Abdallah and Charlie Adams. But having your captain come back, and Aiden knows the culture, and he gets the culture, and that's one thing that he and I talked about a little bit after last season, was that we lost a little bit of that culture last year, and there are a lot of guys playing for themselves, and that happens in a team. But in a new younger team that's coming in, that's very impressionable and new to the banner, you need a person like Aiden who's not only calm on the field but calm off the field as well. Like calm with the ball, just calm in general. Like he has the ability with the right players around him to continue to play at that higher level and feed to his strengths, and he can make other players better. So that's the kind of person you need as a captain, and also one to kind of carry the torch from that culture and brotherhood perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about those new guys though, John, because there's, like you said, there's a lot of them. And first up, I want to talk about a pair of keepers who we haven't seen before. The first one is Ayub Ahmed. He is a Como Park graduate, right? He's coming fresh off the future season, where I looked it up. He actually posted the lowest save percentage, but he's tall as hell, and he's young. So, John, this maybe feels to me like a project for the future, but welcome to Ayub.
Yeah, Ayub, Minnesota United Academy product, ended up going for a year with our buddy up in St. Cloud, and played a year at St. Cloud, and now is going to be playing. Came back to town. Is going to be playing for your guys under Coach Greg Holker at Augsburg. So,
for real?
Yeah. So Ayub, like you said, young goalkeeper, super tall. I think his best attribute is actually the ball with his feet. Like he plays like another field player,
Wow.
and something that no disrespect to other city goalkeepers, but I think from just a raw foot skills perspective, probably the best goalkeeper we've had in that area in the history of the club.
Wow. We haven't really had that.
Yeah, we haven't. Again, no disrespect.
Yeah.
No disrespect. But yeah, really good shot stopper. I think some room to grow, but he fits the mold for Coach Craig. So welcome aboard.
Welcome. Next up, Gabe Kuffel. He is another keeper who's wrapping his freshman year at Xavier University, where hopefully in the future he hopes to be in the conversations around a starter. But this year Xavier leaned on redshirt junior Cole Jensen. And behind him are 3 freshmen. One of them is Gabe. So he's gonna make 4, I think, in that corner of the locker room here at Minneapolis City, which is a situation he should be comfortable with, as he is one of 4 goalkeepers at Xavier. John, with 4 keepers on the roster, do we expect like 2 of them to stay warm at the UPSL level, or it feels like a lot?
I'm not quite sure about that, but I know that the word I heard is that the more the better, and riding the hot hand, and really seeing, who we can lean on. And as we know, it's always difficult. Did you see the revolving door that was our goalkeeper room last year with other than Martin being the clear choice for number one, behind him was kind of the revolving door of backup goalkeepers that could step in at any given time. And I think that's kind of what the coaching staff is leaning on. As far as Gabe's concerned, he's your prototypical, like, huge hulking goalkeeper. And I know that's something that Carl likes. And he comes through the system over at MTA. So he knows quite a few of the folks that are within the staff, as well as some of the players.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think what you'll find here as we start finishing up some of the newer guys is another brotherhood from a local soccer perspective that's growing and starting to come into the fold, playing together again with Minneapolis City.
I hope so. That would be fun. I want to cover up, kind of to your point. We'll get to that later, as there's a lot of guys that are connected from high school, from their high school programs that are coming in. But first, I want to cover up on three guys whose names that I recognize. They come from different spaces, but these guys might be new to the fans. First being Darley Florville. He's a midfielder. He is the latest announcement of the Crows on social media. He's a sophomore at Northwestern.
Northwestern.
The good one, yep. He was the Star Tribune Metro Player of the Year and Mr. Soccer in 2020. He has played with both Joy Athletic and St. Croix. He plays... John, I remember this. I feel like I've heard this guy's name before.
Yeah, so
did he used to be with City?
No, he played with Joy Athletic and St. Croix, so he played against us. And from a playing style perspective, plays a lot like Whitney Brown coming off the wing. Like really good center of gravity, very, very quick, and can play up top as the number 9. But I think his most effective position is probably attacking it off the wing. But guy scores a lot of goals, and if you're being compared to someone like Whitney Brown, I think you're doing it right.
Yeah, that's right. Joy Athletic. That's where I heard his name. Next up, John, I know from my time in the booth at Augsburg, he is the MIAC Offensive Player of the Year. It's Shea Bechtel. He plays for St. Olaf, along with Victor Gallman and Clemente Arkuch Puig that we have on the roster already. This year, Shea was first team All-Region, D3Soccer.com, second team All-American. The guy is just a baller, and so it's going to be good to have him here playing with us instead of away where he was last year.
Yeah, he was voted the he wasn't voted, he earned the 2022 Midwest Premier League Golden Boot while playing with Steel City SC in the Midwestern Premier League, and finished the 10-game season with 9 goals in 10 games. So the guy knows how to find the back of the net. I think that for me, offensively, like vintage Justin Oliver, like that player that just like has a never quit attitude in the final 20 yards of the field. I don't necessarily think that he had some of the intangibles that Justin brought. If I want to artfully describe Justin's playing style, but like when he gets the ball, like it's not necessarily just head down, go to goal, but just constantly finding other ways with his off the ball movement and working off of whoever his partners are up top. He's very much so like Justin was in his prime.
Nice. And
really excited for Shea to be connecting up with some of his college teammates, because if we've found one thing we know, Nate, when players come from playing together, the transition from wherever you were in college to playing with new players, that gap is closed pretty quickly.
Way easier. Yep. And then finally, John, of the names that I know, we've got Joe Highfield. He's a forward, I guess sometimes a midfielder. Played for Wayzata High School. He's a Wayzata High School senior and a Portland University commit. Fun fact, John, I've actually got a picture of Joe Highfield here in my office.
Provide some context, please. So we don't have any of the fans thinking there's a creepy connotation to it.
Taken by St. Paul Pioneer Press photographer who was capturing the moments after my stepson scored his second goal in Joe Highfield's face in the state final. Sadly, of course, Wayzata came back to win that game in extra time. But I've always got Joe Highfield looking distraught with Olin waving two fingers in his face.
Well, Joe typically plays the 10. Moving along. Joe typically plays the 10, but I think he can play across all front three positions. If you're thinking of a connection, I think of like a pass first Timmy Wills type player. Obviously, he has blonde curly hair and not a receding hairline like Tim did.
And a couple feet on him.
And a couple feet on him. And maybe a little bit more mobility, but he's that type of player who's always looking to connect, but can score the goal when he needs to, which is something you like to have as a pivot point. I look at Joe as more of a project for the future, and maybe even getting some time with the Futures this year. We'll have to see on that, but I think that he will benefit from being in this environment before he goes off to Portland, and then ultimately, fingers crossed, comes back into the fold.
So we've got a high school with strong representation, and that is Maple Grove. They've got two guys on our list tonight. The first being Damon Humphreys, another tall center midfielder, John. Carl definitely has a type, and I think that's interesting because I think he's definitely got like a ideal body type for every position on the field, and he's just looking for guys that fit that mold. Damon's like 6'2", it says here.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. There's quite a few tall center midfielders in the city headquarters, but he's a Maple Grove product, like you mentioned, going into his second year, at UW Green Bay, but has yet to feature for the Phoenix. And basically the way I can describe it is someone who he's going to have to be fighting for playing time with, and that's Aiden O'Driscoll. Very similar style. I talked about that calmness, calm on the ball, very good cerebral player, reads the game very well. Maybe, athletically not going to run past many people, but always in the right spot defensively and offensively.
Sweet. Another guy that is a Maple Grove graduate is Curtis Wagner, Loyola University in Maryland player, but still hasn't featured for the Greyhounds, but he's young.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we're talking about size. He goes 6'3". He's also
some big boys.
He's a big guy. Former standout player with Minnesota United FC Academy. Has some similar qualities of an old friend of ours, AJ Albers. Like that, if you're gonna go by me, you're gonna go by me laying on the ground. And if even though you're bigger than I am, I'm going to win the header over you. And kind of that more of like physically menacing defender that just is basically. I mean, can I say like a brick wall that you either got to go around it or above it because you're not going to go through it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll definitely be interested in seeing more from Curtis. He's one of the players that's newer to the fold that I haven't seen a ton from, but I know the coaching staff is really excited about him.
Up next, we've got a trio of defenders, even with ties to Shattuck St. Mary's. First is James Gardiv, and he's another Radford player. He's joining Griffin Gierche in the trip from Virginia, all the way out there next to Virginia Tech is Radford University. James led the team in minutes as a freshman defender, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at him as like from an attacking perspective, not necessarily from a defense perspective, very much like the man we mentioned earlier in Charlie Adams.
All right.
Like really, really shifty on the ball, willing to get up into the attack and link up and then and look for that diagonal ball that breaks the lines, which is something I know that Carl really likes. Not to tip away any of our tactics here, but when you're locked and loaded with an advantage up top, he likes to play the ball direct. To take advantage of that opportunity from a numbers perspective.
Sure.
And that's something that I have seen some tape on James, and I did watch a couple handful of his games this past year at Radford, and I think he's going to be an exciting player to add into the mix. I think not the mix of defense and offense that we kind of haven't seen in a while. and that engine to be able to put it all together without tiring out and getting beaten on the defensive side.
Yeah, phenomenal. You're talking about more of a distributor, right? As opposed to like Xavier Zenge was able to like get up, get into the box, like make himself dangerous on, either by looking for that low cross or maybe taking a shot. Whereas you're thinking James is more like he can get forward along with a couple forwards and just bomb that cross to the far post.
Yeah, or he does a really good job of connecting to elevate numbers. So okay. like reading the space to be able to say, if I get up the field now and I don't have the ball, but I have the ability to kind of pin a winger or a defender back, and it gives us an advantage from a numbers perspective. He's very much willing to do that, but I think his distribution to the front three and breaking the pass, bypassing the midfield line to break that to try to connect with the forward, I think is kind of his strength.
All right. Up next, we got Cullen Conacher. He's a defender, another tall, rangy defender from Shattuck St. Mary's. He attends American University, John, in Washington, D.C.
The University of the United States.
not National American University from the television at 3 a.m.
No, totally different.
What else? What's up with Cullen?
He was a highly touted recruit out of Shattuck St. Mary's, and ultimately went on. Before Shattuck played with Minnesota United Academy, he was actually one of a handful of players that came through our player request form that we have on our website.
Really?
I look at him as if you're making a connection to players of old, which is my job on this here show in these player announcements. Built like Nate Engel, minus the tattoos. So you're taller, you're skinnier, defender, very, very rangy, lengthy, and really tough to get past, and very calm on the ball and willing to hit that long ball. So again, you're starting to see a little bit of a common theme here, not only where these players are coming from, but also in how they play positionally.
Sure. Finally, defender we don't know really a whole lot about at all. It's Carson Pena. He goes to Campbell University in North Carolina, another Shattuck grad. He actually played 13 games last year. And John, you're saying he's another guy that came from the player request process.
Yeah. So the only thing I know about Carson is watching the tape he attached to his player request form. So, I mean, he's a lot like James. I think can play either side. James features more on the right. Carson featured on both right and left defense. And other than that, he's a surprise, but I like good surprises. So we can see some of these players for the first time together.
Who's the other center? Who are the center backs on the roster, John, besides Jonah?
Humphreys, Conacher, Wagner, and
we missed. Okay,
we're missing one, aren't we?
No, I was gonna say we missed talking about Wagner.
Oh, no, we did. Well, he's a Greyhound. We talked about him
last year. Right there, just a second ago. Sorry, I missed him on the page. I'm like Curtis Wagner. I thought I had him.
Do we mention any center backs last show?
Mm-mm.
Well,
anyway,
there's 4. We only had 2 last year.
So. That is gonna do it for this week's show. That's as we round out our preview of players new to Minneapolis City. Thanks again to our wonderful show sponsor, footballstadiumprints.com. Whether your club is in the news because you're top of the table, but you're stumbling, or because you just got stomped 6-1, or because you just got promoted to League 2, Football Stadium Prints has anything and everything from mugs to t-shirts to sweet prints of club icons like the John Bisworm, t-shirts of Matt Elder, t-shirts and prints of Edor Nelson Field. And don't forget, you use the code CROWS10 for 10% off on everything you purchase. All U.S. orders are going to ship right here from the States, so there's no international shipping charges. 2023 memberships are still available, but there are only a few left. $89 is going to get you tickets to every UPSL and USL home game, as well as the Minnesota Super Cup and you get a voice that helps shape the club for next year. As a reminder, MPLS City, Minneapolis City, is a 501c3. So if you're looking at your tax forms and you're
just getting hammered by taxes,
you just gave up a ton of money last year, you got a plan for next year. Consider that charitable gift to the club that gives back. If you're interested in getting a hold of us, we've made it simple. You got to hit the club up on Twitter at MPLS City SC, or you can email us at the show or tweet at us at the show at the People's Pitch, or email us mcscpodcast@gmail.com. Tick tock, the days are counting down until the season opener, and we are on the way to a kick-ass May, June, July. I am Nate. That was John. We're going to be back next week with a preview of the season opener against Minnesota United FC 19. Until then,
doing great. You got hooked.
Please hook me.
You got hooked. You really did.